What I'm about to show you is a masterclass in getting under Donald Trump's skin. So to set the stage, take a look at who sat next to Barack Obama to his left during Jimmy Carter's funeral service. And now take a look at the photo published by the Carter Foundation, which offers a interesting vantage point. Now, I'm not saying that they chose this photo for any particular reason, but if I had to choose a reason, I think it would be pretty easy. Granted, if, and that's a big if, it is true that they chose this photo as a slight against Trump, it would be well-founded. After all, in the immediate aftermath of President Carter's passing, Trump decided to take issue with the flags being flown at half-staff, worried about the optics during the inauguration. He posted on the Truth Social, "The Democrats are all giddy about our magnificent American flag potentially being at half-mast during my inauguration. They think it's so great and are so happy about it because in actuality, they don't love our country, they only think about themselves. Look at what they've done to our once great America over the past 4 years. It's a total mess. In any event, because of the death of President Jimmy Carter, the flag may, for the very first time during an inauguration of a future president, be at half-mast. Nobody wants to see this and no American can be happy about it. Let's see how it plays out." To be clear, it is tradition in this country that when any current or former president dies, the flags are flown at half-staff for 30 days. But Trump isn't concerned about tradition if it doesn't benefit him, and so even as president-elect, his first reaction is to throw a temper tantrum because even as this guy remains the luckiest person on the planet in every which way, legally, electorally, and otherwise, still he manages to view himself as the victim. If Donald Trump wanted a realistic rendition for his official portrait as 47th President of the United States, the artist would paint him in a fetal position because that's where he feels most at home. I mean, honestly, imagine being so insecure that even after getting elected President of the United States, you feel threatened by a flag being flown at half-staff, as is tradition? Like, I'm sorry, but isn't this guy supposed to be a tough guy? Isn't he supposed to be the big alpha that Republicans keep beating their chests about? And yet, this is all it takes to send him into a tailspin? I beg of Republicans, if you are gonna lionize Donald Trump as some tough son of a bitch, try and convince him to at least try not acting like a whiny little bitch instead. Of course, it's not difficult to recognize why Donald Trump might be so hostile to keeping the flags at half-staff for Jimmy Carter, considering this is just some of what Carter has said about Trump when he was alive.
Russia has been proven by our intelligence community to have interfered with one of our human rights, which is the right of free and fair elections. What's your reaction? How should we deal with Russia?
Well, the president himself should condemn it, admit that it happened, which I think 16 of our intelligence agencies have already agreed to say. And there's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election. And I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
And remember, Trump's sole condition for whether or not he likes you is whether you are willing to genuflect at his altar. And because Carter wasn't willing to grovel at his feet like the rest of the Republican Party does, then Trump refuses to show him even a modicum of respect. That is how loyalty works with Donald Trump. It is a one-way street. You're expected to give it over and over and over unconditionally, and in return, you can expect exactly nothing. And amazingly, this isn't even the only time that Donald Trump has thrown a fit over the flag being lowered out of respect for leaders who pass away. According to MSNBC, in 2018, just 2 days after Senator John McCain's death, Trump had the White House flag raised to full staff, prompting fierce criticism from Republicans, Democrats, and veteran groups. Trump, whose relationship with McCain was infamously strained, eventually relented and ordered the flag to be lowered again. Trump was not invited to McCain's funeral, and months later complained that he didn't get a thank you for giving the Arizona Republican the kind of funeral he wanted. Yeah, not for nothing, but if Republicans didn't elect the most insecure man-child on earth, they wouldn't have to contend with the embarrassment that he brings onto himself on a daily basis. And yet, here we are. But the glaring lack of any semblance of good character from Trump stands in stark contrast to Jimmy Carter, a point that Joe Biden made here.
In April 2021, Jill and I visited Jimmy and Rosalynn on a warm spring day down in Plains, Georgia. We wanted to see them. Rosalind met us at the front door with her signature smile. Together, we entered a home that they had shared for almost 77 years of marriage. An unassuming red brick ranch home that reflects their modesty more than any trappings of power. We walked into the living room where Jimmy greeted us like family. That day, just the four of us sat in the living room and shared memories that spanned almost 6 decades. A deep friendship that started in 1974. I was a 31-year-old senator, and I was the first senator outside of Georgia, maybe the first senator, to endorse his candidacy for president. It was an endorsement based on what I believe is Jimmy Carter's enduring attribute: character, character, character. Because of that character, I believe, is destiny. Destiny in our lives, and quite frankly, destiny in the life of the nation. It's an accumulation of a million things built on character that leads to a good life in a decent country. Life of purpose, life of meaning.
The reality is that Donald Trump often attacks those whose character, whose compassion, whose competence, whose charisma, and whose generosity put on full display his lack of it. That's what Jimmy Carter did. That is why Donald Trump feels the need to pick fights. Not because his enemies are inadequate, but because Trump himself is. And worse, Donald Trump knows it. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.